it's a ratio. But I have your definition I need you to write down. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities. Now, if you look here, I have a fraction of 3/4. It's talking about two quantities, two values, using division. So a ratio is basically a fraction. Now, I also want to point out that a ratio can be written also in another form as with the word 2, 3 to 4. Another way a ratio can be written is 3 semicolon 4. Now, the most common one we'll use today in our lesson and throughout the chapter is the fraction form. Therefore, I boxed it. So this is going to be the most common one we're going to use. So again, a ratio is a fraction. Okay, the next word I have is a rate. What is a rate? A rate is a ratio. So a rate is a fraction, but this time you need to make sure that there's units attached to it. Notice here, we don't have any units. We just have 3/4. Now, if you look at this, not only do we have a fraction of 60/2, but there are units attached to it. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight this, miles and hours. And the units are different. They're not the same. It's not miles and miles. It's not hours and hours. They're different units. So the difference between a ratio is that, and a rate is just a fraction. A rate has to have a fraction and units attached to it. Okay? Now again, if I'm going too fast in the vocabulary or something's not making sense, feel free to pause it and press play when you're ready. Okay, the last vocabulary word I have is a unit rate. What is a unit rate? A unit rate is a rate with a denominator of 1. Notice the bottom denominator is 1. Will all the unit rates have a denominator of 1? Yes. Now, how did I get 30 miles over 1 hour? I got this from my rate problem or rate example above. So, if you notice, you travel here, it says 60 miles for 2 hours. So, I'm just going to use this example over here. So, it says you travel 60 miles for 2 hours, and this is your rate. Now, if you want to know what your unit rate is, all you need to do, keyword, is divide. When you divide your rate, 60, top goes in, bottom goes out. I'm going to go ahead and finish this for you. 2 into 6 is 3. You get a total of 30. Now, what this 30 means is that this 30 represents the 30 miles, and the bottom will be for 1 hour. Will the bottom always be 1 for a unit rate? Yes. So this would be the unit rate. A unit rate helps you to determine future calculations for more hours later. For example, if you know in 1 hour, it's 30 miles, 2 hours was double the time. If it's 3 hours, it would be triple and so forth. So we use a unit rate to figure out future calculations. All right, if there's anything in this video that didn't make sense, again, please ask me questions, for example, on the vocabulary or any of the examples I'm going to show you in the next slides. Okay, so examples. Let's go ahead and get started. Example 1, ratios and rate. There are 45 males and 60 females in a subway car. The subway car travels 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. So the first thing they're asking you to do is find the ratio A. To find the ratio, it says here we want to know the comparison between males to females. So I'm going to look at what males are. Males are 45. And since males were mentioned first here, I wrote 45 first. Then females are 60. Females was second, so I'm going to put females second here underneath. Remember, a ratio is just a fraction. So here's my ratio, but the problem with this ratio is that it's not a simplified. So to simplify this, we need to make this smaller, as small as we can make it. I can divide this by 15, and my final answer will be 3/4. Again, always simplify your ratio when you can. Now, for B, they're asking you to find the speed of the subway car. In other words, they don't tell you, but they're asking you to find the unit rate. We already know how fast the subway car goes. In the sentence above, it says that it travels 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. But in a unit rate, we don't want to know for 5 minutes. We want to know for 1 minute. Remember, a unit rate has to have the per 1 of a unit. So in this case, the 1 would be the 1 minute, and the top would be the miles. How many miles? I don't know how many miles, so I'm going to put here blank miles. And why did I choose to put miles first and then minutes? If you look at the sentence, miles came first and then minutes. So you have to write it in the order you see it. Miles first, then minutes. Miles first, then minutes. Okay, let's go ahead and write what, I'm going to go ahead and move this really quick. over to the side because we're going to use this later. Let's go ahead now and write what it says. It says you are going to, or it says you're going for 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. Now, this is called a rate, not a unit rate. What I'm writing in blue, this is called a rate. So this is a rate. You write that down. Make sure you write that down also. Now, to change this into a unit rate, again, just like what we did in our last one, we took the top and we divide it by the bottom. So 2.5 divided by 5, that's going to give you 5, or 0.5 because the decimal's right there. And that's going to be 0. So that 0.5 just goes right on top. So our final answer for the unit rate would be 1 minute is a half a mile because 5 minutes is 2.5 miles. Again, we can use a unit rate to figure out future calculations for 7 minutes, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, etc. All right, next example. We're going to go ahead and find the rate using this chart. So it says here the ratio table shows the cost for different amounts of artificial turf. Artificial turf is fake grass. So it tells you the cost, how much you spend, and how many square feet you get. Now we want to find the rate or the unit rate, the per one, in dollars per square foot. So it's dollars per square foot. So I know that they want to talk about dollars first and then over square feet. So feet squared. Now when we're talking about ratios, and anytime we're talking about ratios and money, money always goes on top. And they happen to mention that here. So again, money always goes on top. So if I look at this table, I see that there are 4 sets of data. 1, 2, 3, and 4. You don't have to use all 4 to calculate this. You only need to use 1. Now, why did I circle it up and down? Because this is an X and this is a Y. Okay, so I would choose the smallest one that I see. The smallest set I see is 25 over 100. So I'm going to use that one. Again, this just tells you the square feet and this just tells you the dollars. So if you want to spend $100, that's going to give you 25 square feet. So I'm going to write what it says here using this one. I'm going to use this one right here. So $100 will be on top because my dollars, money is always on top. That's what it says dollars here. And feet, 25. This just gives me a rate, but this does not give me a unit rate. So if I had $100, it's 25 feet. I want to know the cost of how many dollars it is for just 1 square foot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my top, divide it by my bottom, 100 divided by 25, and I get 4. This 4 represents $4. So I'm going to go ahead and put $4 for how much? For 1 square foot. Remember, the bottom always has to be 1 for finding the unit rate. So if I want to buy just 1 square foot of fake turf or artificial grass, artificial grass, it's going to cost me $4. If I had $8, it's going to give me 2 feet. If I had $12, it's going to give me 3, etc. So you can use a unit rate to calculate future calculations. Okay? All right. I would like for you now to take out a piece of paper. If you need more time to do the on your own, please pause the video, solve the problem, and write down your answer. There are 3 in this page or in this slide. Please do them, and if you have any questions, please ask me tomorrow. All right, in our last example, it's example 3. It talks about the graph and its speed. It talks about the speed of a subway. And in this case, it's very similar to example 1, but except it's not in a, go back to example 1. Example 1, they had questions. This one has a chart for you to look at, or a graph. So we want to find the speed in miles per minute. So notice the miles is first and the minute is second. And later on, we're going to compare it to example 1. So if you look here, you notice there are 2 points. We don't need to use 2 points, just like the table in the last example. We can just use 1 point. So which point would I use? I would use this one. Why? Because this one has a better fraction to work with. This one has a mixed number, and it will get messy and confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and use the easier and simpler value. Always choose the smallest and easiest number to work with. So I'm going to use this. Now, if you remember in graphing, x is graphed first and then y. So a half is x, 1/4 is y. Now, if I want to write this as a rate, I'm going to go ahead and look to see what the question says to write it as. Miles per minute. Miles is right here, and if you notice, miles is in the y form, so I'm going to go look at y. Miles is 1/4 over, and it says minutes is right here, and that's in the x. X is 1/2, so we'll put 1/2 here. Now, this is my rate. This is my rate. But the only problem with this is that it's not a unit rate. This is for a half a minute.
Staff, we're beginning.
Sorry, Bob. Sorry for that interruption. So this is for half a minute, and then this is for 1/4 of a mile. Where did I get these units from?